and welcome to this basic macroeconomics class. I am your teacher Muhammad Nadeem Sarwar. Today we shall continue our discussion on consumption theories and we shall discuss intertemporal choice. So let's start with the lecture. Students, intertemporal choice by Irving Fisher explains choosing consumption level in different time periods. That is, how much to consume today and how much to save to support tomorrow's consumption. We believe that households live over multiple time periods and they can borrow and lend. Therefore, it is possible for households to consume more or less than their income in a time period. Therefore, we say that consumers face intertemporal budget constraint. This intertemporal budget constraint measures the total resources available for consumption today and in future. To understand this model, we assume that consumers live for two periods. We call them as period 1 and period 2. Consumers' income and consumption in period 1 are Y1 and C1 respectively, whereas income and consumption in period 2 are Y2 and C2. We also assume that all the variables are real, that is, they are adjusted for inflation. And also that consumers can borrow and save. Therefore, consumption in any single period can be either greater or less than income in that period. Summarizing this in mathematical form, we can say that in period 1, income and its uses are, whereas in period 2, the income and its uses are. Substituting for savings, we have rearranging the equation, we have this is intertemporal budget constraint that shows that income in period 1 and in period 2 discounted at period 1 should be equal to the consumption in both periods where we are discounting second period's consumption. This intertemporal budget constraint also shows that if interest rate is 0, the budget constraint is, and if interest rate is positive, then future consumption and future income are discounted by a factor 1 plus R. This discounting rises because the current income, if saved, earns interest and grows in future. This also shows that for a typical consumer, future income is less worth than current income. Same is the case for consumption. C1 over 1 plus R is the opportunity cost of 1 unit of C2. Now we present it graphically. For this, we solve the intertemporal budget constraint equation for y-axis variable. This gives us intercept and slope. So graphically we present it as if there is an increase in income either in period 1 or in period 2, the both points at intercept on x and y axis show that the curve, the intertemporal budget constraint line or the budget line simply shifts up. The opposite will be true in case of decrease in income. Whereas if there is a change in interest rate, say it increases, then we can say that the consumption of C1 will decrease as now saving will be more attractive. Whereas this saving will lead to higher income in second period that will result in increasing second period's consumption. We can also get to these results simply by the formulas given at the intercept points. Now the consumer preferences. We know that the consumer preferences are shown by indifference curve. Here an IC shows the preference of consumer between consumption 1, consumption in period 1 and consumption in period 2. In other words, it shows different pairs of C1 and C2 that give consumer equal level of satisfaction. Like the simple ICs, here again, higher the IC, higher is the level of satisfaction. The slope of IC is called marginal rate of substitution, which shows how much of C1 a consumer is willing to give up to increase C2 by 1 unit. The MRS decreases in the magnitude along an IC. After discussing consumers' budget constraint and preferences, now we can consider the decision about how much to consume in each period. The consumer's goal is to maximize lifetime utility, that is, being on highest indifference curve. But the resource constraint puts a limit. Consumer can only be on or below budget line because of limited resources available. Consumer achieves highest level of lifetime satisfaction by choosing a point where budget line is tangent to highest indifference curve. In this figure, a consumer will have highest level of satisfaction if he or she chooses a pair that lies on IC2. But all the pairs on second indifference curve labeled as IC2 are beyond the budget limit of the consumer. So these are unaffordable. Therefore, the highest level of satisfaction is achieved at point E. And at this point, the slope of indifference curve, which is the marginal rate of substitution, is equal to the slope of budget line, which is equal to 1 plus R. Now we study how a change in income and interest rate changes consumer preferences one by one. First, we study change in income. A change in income, for example, an increase, enables consumer to move to higher indifference curve and increase the consumption of both C1 and C2. This is shown in the diagram. The key conclusion from the figure is that no matter if Y1 increases or Y2, the consumer spreads his increase in income over the consumption in both periods. This behavior is called consumption smoothing. That is, the consumer wants to adopt a smooth consumption pattern over his lifetime. A consumer can do so because he or she can borrow and lend between periods. Therefore, the timing of income is irrelevant to how much is consumed today and how much will be consumed tomorrow. It is also important to point that the key difference between Keynes and Fisher's theory is that Keynes suggested that a person's current consumption depends largely on current income, whereas Fisher's theory concludes that consumption is based on expected lifetime income. Now, the change in interest rate. An increase in interest rate alters consumers' preferences, makes saving in first period more attractive, and thus increases the consumption of C2 at the cost of C1. This impact of increase in real interest rate on consumption can be decomposed in income effect and substitution effect. The income effect is the change in consumption resulting from movement to a higher indifference curve. As a consumer is saver because first period's consumption is less than first period's income, the increase in interest rate makes him better off and the consumer spreads this benefit over both periods. The substitution effect is the change in consumption resulting from change in the relative prices of consumption in two periods. In particular, because the real interest rate earned on saving is higher, the cost of current period consumption must be higher. So, the consumer must now give up C1 to obtain C2. However, at higher interest rate, giving up less of C1 will enable consumer to obtain more of C2. The consumer's choice depend on the both income effect and substitution effect. Both effects act to increase C2. So we can conclude that an increase in real interest rate raises second period's consumption. However, the two effects, that is the income effect and consumption effect, have opposite effects on C1. An increase in income increases C1, that is consumption in first period, whereas an increase in interest rate decreases it. So, depending upon the size of the two, the increase in interest rate could either lower first period consumption or raise it. Now we study the case of borrowing constraint. Previously, we examined Fisher's consumption model with no borrowing constraint. However, in real life, it is possible that facility to borrow may not be available to some persons. We examine this case now. In case of borrowing constraint, which is also called as liquidity constraint, the consumption in first period will be equal or less than income in first period. Now, the consumer's choice must satisfy both intertemporal budget constraint as well as borrowing constraint. Graphically, we represent borrowing constraint as in presence of borrowing constraint, we might come across two kinds of consumers. Number one, it is possible that consumer naturally wishes to consume less in period 1 or equal to his or her income. Let me say it again to make it clear that in real life it is possible that consumer naturally chooses to consume equal to or less than his or her income. For such a consumer, the borrowing constraint is not binding and therefore it does not affect consumption. This is shown in the diagram. The second kind of consumer is represented by such who would like to consume more than his income in period 1 as represented by point F. However, the borrowing constraint does not allow him or her to do so. Such consumers can do the best by consuming all of their first period income in period 1. This is represented by point E. For this consumer, consumption in first period will be equal to income in that period. The analysis of borrowing constraint leads us to conclude that there are two consumption functions. For some consumers, the borrowing constraint is not binding and the consumption in both periods depends on the present value of lifetime income. Whereas for other consumers, the borrowing constraint holds. Therefore, their consumption is, that is, they will consume all first period income in first period and all second period income in second period. In other words, for these consumers, consumption depends only on current income. That is all for this lecture. Please post your questions and give your feedback in comments. Also consider liking the video, subscribing the channel and sharing the video. Thank you and goodbye.